Now I want to introduce a concept which is widely used in Python. It's about list. So list object type is a collection of other types. So it can be a collection of string that we have already seen, integers, floats, or list again. It can also be a collection of other data type that we are going to see later in this course. Going back in my Hello World project, if I want to declare a list, I just have to give his name. For example, I will declare my list and I put a square bracket. So this is how we declare a list in Python. But now it is an empty list because nothing is inside, but I can fill it with different data type as we have seen earlier, which are strings, float, list themselves, or any other data type. To keep it simple, we are just going to fill with integers. So I put, for example, 1, and to put the next value I put a comma and I put a space so that my code will be beautiful. I put 2, I put a space, 3, 4, and maybe let's say 5. If I print this list, print my list. So if I run, you see the list has been printed. As you can imagine, lists in Python are much more powerful than just printing them in the terminal. There are many types of operations that we can perform with list. I will show you some of the commonly used operations. For example, if I want to add another number here at the end, maybe I want to add 6, I will use append, what we call a method. So I will use an append method. Method is something related to object-oriented programming. We are going to see it later in this course. I can say my list, and to access that method I must put a dot, and you see there are different methods that are presented that I can perform on the list. So for example, if I take the very first, which is append, now you see this parenthesis, it is asking what is called an argument. If I put, for example, 6 and I print my list again, the new list, you see the value of 6 has been added. I can also use the remove method. So now I can put what I want to remove. For example, if I want to remove the value of 4, so I just have to put here 4. And so if I print the result, I will have the list but with the value of 4 removed. If I want to find the position of a number in my list, I will use instead the index method. So for example, the number 3 is here at the 0, 1, and 2, so at the second position. Notice that in Python, numbers that are 0, not at 1. So when I count, I start at 0 here. So the number 1 is at 0 position in the list. Number 2 is at the first position, so at position 1, and number 3 is at position 2. So if I want to have the position, I will use the index of 3. And if I instead print this, I will cut it and paste here in the print function, and this is what I get too, because number 3 is at the position 2, as I said. On the same way, if I print, for example, the position of number 5, so position of number 5, and in that list number 5 is at position 4. On the other hand, if I want to do the opposite, that is, I know the index of a number and I want to know that number in the list, so I will instead use this syntax, my list, and I will use square bracket, and I will put the value of the index here in the square bracket. For example, if I say 0, that is, I want the very first value in the list. I can put that value in a variable called, let's say, z. If I print the value of z, I'm expecting to have 1 because the first value in my list is 1. So I'm expecting to have printed in the terminal 1. Let's run and see. So it's exactly what we said. If, for example, I say I want the number in the list at the position 1, I'm expecting to have the value of 2 because 2 is at position 1 in the list. So let's print and see. So that is it, I have 2. As you have guessed, programming is not just printing values in terminal. When I get a value from the list, I can do a multiple type of operation with it. I can, for example, define another variable that I will call maybe y, and I can say that y is equals to 2 multiply by, for example, let's say z. So what is my code saying? It says that go in my list, take the number which is at position 1, assign it to the variable z, and then create another variable y and multiply that z value that you have got from my list by 2. So if I print the value of y, I will get 4 because this is 2, please, this is 2 and this is 2, so the value is 4. 5 is the last value of my list. A way to select the value 5 is to say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's to put his index here, which is 4. But there is another way to select the last value of a list, which is using the -1 index. So -1 index is the index used to select the last value of a list. If I do this, the value of z will be 5 and y will be 2 times 5 will be 10. So let's print and see if it's correct. So you see that is the value we got. Now let's erase this. Imagine the situation where I want to know the number of elements that my list has. So I will use the length function. It is like this, len, and I put the bracket and I put the name of my list, which is my list. If I print, I will have the number of elements that are in my list, which is 5 elements. Here is a point. Notice the color of print and len. They have the same color. That's the color used by default in PyCharm to differentiate built-in functions. As I told you, there are functions that come with Python. You don't have to program them from scratch. And they are also reserved words. So you cannot create a variable called len because it is already a reserved word. Or you cannot create a variable called print because it is a reserved word. Now imagine a situation where I want to select a subset of this list. Let's say, for example, I want to select number 2 to 4. So I can create another list. I will call it, for example, Sublist, and it is equal to my list. And now I want element going from 1, 2 to 3. So I will put in the square bracket, I want elements from 1, I put 2 point, and now I put 4. So what does it mean? It means that I will have element 1, to 4 minus 1, which means I will have element 1, 2, 3. So let's print this sublist and let's see the result in the terminal. So we print and you see it gives 2, 3 and 4, which is this range.